Hi everyone and welcome to another reading vlog. It is finally time to hold myself accountable and read another series that I intended to start last year but didn't get around to. So if you missed episode 1 of this project, I'll leave it linked in the description and in the cards. But the series that I've chosen for this episode is the Broken Earth series by NK Jemison. This is a trilogy made up of 3 books. We have the 5th season, the Obelisk Gate and the Stone Sky. So the way that I'm gonna film this vlog is I'm gonna read the 5th season this week. I'm hoping to get around to books 2 and 3 in September. So it's currently August. If you're watching this vlog in September, then clearly I've succeeded. But if you're watching this in October or November or December, then clearly I failed. But the plan is to read all 3 of these books in this one vlog and share my thoughts and feelings as I go. I am going to keep this vlog spoiler free, so hopefully by the end of this reading vlog I'm going to be able to tell you, is it worth reading the Broken Earth trilogy? I'm hoping the answer is going to be yes. I made a start on the 5th season last night. I'm currently around 75 pages into this. I'm at the start of chapter 5. I'm actually buddy reading this with Charlotte, who I will leave linked in the description just in case you would like to check out her channel. Really liking the setup for this book so far. I was really nervous because I'd heard that a large chunk of this is told in second person point of view, which isn't my favourite. I used to say that I hate second person perspective, but I think it just depends on the type of story, and I think it really works well for this book. So the first chapter opens with this narrator addressing you as the reader. This is set in a world that is very unstable, so there are frequent earthquakes and there are people in this world called origines who can sense activity that's happening below the Earth's surface. It seems like they can also manipulate the elements in some way. It's all been built up very gradually, so we're very gradually learning more about this world and these people. The start of this book is heartbreaking. We're introduced to this woman called Essen who has just found out that her husband has murdered their 3-year-old son and kidnapped their daughter. Essen is an origin and she has kept it hidden from her partner and from the wider community where they live, and she believes that that's why her husband murdered their son, because she passed on her abilities to her children. So part of this book, I think we're going to be following Essen as she tries to track down her husband and save her daughter. But then there's also a few other perspectives where we're learning more about this world. The atmosphere so far has been incredible, and it's really interesting how this book is taking place during the start of an apocalypse. And I say an apocalypse because from what I gather, this world has been through apocalypses before. On the very first page, it actually talks about how when we say the world has ended, it's usually a lie because the planet is just fine. It's just the people who have ended, if that makes sense. But then it also goes on to say this is the way the world ends for the last time. So yeah, I'm getting goosebumps actually just thinking about this book. I'm really excited to dive back into it this evening. It's not very fast paced, it's very slow and methodical, but I am just devouring this. It feels really unique and unlike anything I've ever read before, so fingers crossed I end up loving this. I will update you once I've read another 100 or 200 pages, but so far so good. So I was working from the office today and all I could think about all day was how much I wanted to get home so I could continue reading the 5th season. So that should tell you how much I'm enjoying this so far. I'm not quite obsessed. I mean, maybe I am, but I'm only 150 pages into this. I'm at the start of the first interlude And yeah, I'm really liking this so far. I love the detailed and intricate world building. This world is just so interesting. I love how we're switching back and forth between different perspectives. So we have this second person POV that's following a woman called Essen as she's searching for her daughter. But then there's also other perspectives, and it's through those perspectives where we're learning more about the origins and how they fit into society. So one of the perspectives that we're following is this young girl who's taken from her family at a young age to train at this facility. There's also another perspective where we're following this young woman who I think is in her late teens or early 20s, and she's also an origin, and she's starting to question the way that they're treated by this society. Like I might have said, the writing in this is so beautiful and it feels very intense, but I love that because I'm in the mood for something that can just sweep me away and make me feel like I'm there in this setting. And even though there hasn't been much of a plot to this yet, I'm quite happy just learning about this world. I've been in the mood for fantasy that has that very detailed and intricate world building, and so far this is doing what I want it to do. I think it's been a few days since I last updated this vlog because I'm reading this quite slowly, but I'm now over halfway through the 5th season. I'm on page 297 and I'm still really enjoying this. I don't want to say that it's going to be a 5 stars, but I don't think it's going to be any less than 4 stars. And I've been trying to think how I can explain why I'm loving this book so far, because I do think that this book is a bit Marmite. I think that you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. Some people might fall in the middle, but you know what I mean. I think the reason why this is working for me is because it's neither plot driven or character driven, and that's not to say that the plot isn't interesting and the characters don't feel well developed. I think we're going to get some really interesting character relationships in this series. However, what I am enjoying the most is the way that this is exploring a society. I think this is the kind of fantasy where the focus is more on the themes rather than anything else, and I like books like that. I think the only series that I can think of that has this kind of world building is The Ninth Reign by Jen Williams. Where is it? It's here. This is another series where the focus, especially in the first book, is on the world building, and it's a little bit confusing at times because the characters don't always know everything. Like, there's so much mystery to the history of this world, and I'm finding the same about the 5th season. Characters have referenced information that's been passed down the generations, but there's so much that they don't know because this is a world that's gone through cycle after cycle of apocalypses, and they don't know everything because certain history has been lost. I am so excited to finish this. It does take a lot out of me emotionally. I'm hoping to finish this over the weekend and then I will update you with some final thoughts, but I am really tempted to just marathon this trilogy. I can't though. I have other books on my TBR for August, but I will be adding books 2 and 3 to my TBR for September because yeah, I am slowly becoming obsessed with this series, and I've only read half of the first book. So I have now finished the 5th season by NK Jemison, and I am going to give it 5 stars. I think this is actually one of my favourite books of the year so far. I don't know whether it's my favourite. I'm still thinking about it because there's another fantasy book that I read right at the start of the year that I think I might have enjoyed as much, but it's one of my favourite books of the year so far. I don't think I would recommend this to everyone though. I'm going to wait until I finish the series before giving full thoughts, obviously, but there was a lot of setup in this book, and there was a lot of manoeuvring characters so they're where they need to be for the rest of the series, or at least that's how it felt to me. I've heard mixed reviews about the rest of the series, so I'm really interested to see what direction it goes in, especially with how things ended in this book. The ending to this was not what I was expecting. It was brutal, and to be fair, I should have expected that because the tone of this is very bleak. I think if you're looking for a cozy fantasy or a happy fantasy, I wouldn't recommend this book. I didn't cry, but there were some very emotionally intense moments, and I think if I had to give one small criticism, I would say that I wanted it to go a little bit deeper. I think that might have just been the writing style though, and yeah, like I said, I still gave this 5 stars, and I'm really excited to continue with books 2 and 3. I'm definitely going to be adding both to my September TBR. Thank you to Charlotte as well for buddy reading this with me. I do think this is a really good book to buddy read because there is so much mystery behind the world building, and there's a lot that you can theorise on, and I always find that those books are the best books to buddy read. So yeah, really glad that this vlog is actually happening because obviously if I didn't like the first book then I wasn't gonna continue the series, and this vlog would have been a bit of a fail. But yeah, I will catch up with you once I've made a start on the Obelisk Gate, which is book 2 in the trilogy. Tell how excited I am about this series based on the fact that it's currently at the end of August. I added the Obelisk Gate to my September TBR, however I've started it already because I was just too excited and I couldn't wait. I don't know why I've convinced myself that it's going to become a new favourite fantasy series of all time, but while I'm feeling motivated to read it, I'm just going to roll with it. So I read the first 5 chapters on the train yesterday. I am currently on page 87, and this has had quite a slow start so far, which actually I think is quite a good thing because the ending of book 1 was quite intense, and I don't think I would have liked it if I'd gone back into this book and it had had that same level of intensity. I think it would have been too much. I am really intrigued by the new perspective that we're getting in this. I'm not sure whether I was expecting it. I wasn't surprised, but yeah, I think it's gonna add another layer to this story that I'm really excited about. I do also have a theory on something. I'm not gonna say what it is, obviously, because of spoilers, but a character talked about something earlier and it's kind of triggered something in my brain. It's a bit out there, like this theory, so it's probably not going to be correct. If I am right, I'm going to feel really proud of myself. I'll probably do another update once I'm around the halfway point, but yeah, I feel like this has had a slow start so far, but there's still potential for it to grow, kind of like how the first book did. So I am now around halfway through the Obelisk Gate. I am on page 232. I'm at the start of the second interlude, I think it is, and I'm really enjoying this so far. However, it hasn't been what I was expecting. I made an assumption after the first book that I thought this was going to have more plot, and that hasn't happened so far. We're basically following these characters and seeing how they adapt and react to this season, which is what they call an apocalypse in this world. We're seeing them reflect on the past, and we're seeing them make plans for the future and try and navigate this situation. It does feel very much like the middle book in a series though, which isn't a bad thing because I am just fascinated by this world and by these characters. There's been some moments in this that I've had to reread to make sure that I'm processing everything that it's trying to say, and it's blowing my mind a little bit. I want to talk a little bit more about the writing style as well, because I think I said earlier in the vlog, I don't usually get along with second person point of view. However, I think it's working for me in this book because it's a really interesting way of being inside the mind of the main character. So we have this narrator who's addressing you as if you're the main character. So at times it feels like it's telling instead of showing, because that's the writing style. Like it'll say something like, you felt this, or you assumed this, or you did this. So it is telling and not showing, but I think because it's that second person writing style, it is making me feel closer to the main character, and it's making my brain fill in what the book isn't actually explicitly saying. One of the main reasons why I like reading books that follow older characters is because they've already lived a life, and the experiences that they've had in the past influence the person that they are in the present day. The characters in this, for example, have been through a lot of trauma, and you can see the way that that's shaped them as people, and they're not always likeable. They've had to make really difficult decisions, but I'm finding them so interesting to follow, and yeah, I feel like this is going to be another 5 stars. It might all go downhill again in the second half, but I haven't read a fantasy book this thought-provoking in a really long time. I don't think this is going to go in a predictable way because these characters are so complex and they have so many layers. I can't really predict what direction this is going to go in and what the characters are going to do next, but I am interested to find out. This is going to be a very quick update because I haven't been feeling very well today, and also I look horrendous. However, I wanted to let you know I did finish The Obelisk Gate last night, and I'm gonna give this 4 stars. I think it's closer to a 4.5 because I didn't enjoy this as much as the 5th season. It was mostly the pacing that I had issues with, so it was very slow in the beginning, and then nothing was really happening, but I didn't really mind it because I was still finding everything so interesting, and then the ending felt a bit rushed. There was some stuff that happened towards the end. Actually, I had to at one point go back and reread a page because I couldn't believe what had happened. It felt like it was done in a very abrupt way. Other than the pacing though, I did really like this, and I am nervous about the last book, not because I don't think I'm going to enjoy it, but because I am scared about the direction that this is going in. I've already read the synopsis for book 3, and yeah, I think it's gonna hurt. So I'm gonna start that possibly tonight. I am going away this weekend, so I don't know how much reading I'm gonna get done. I will let you know once I have some thoughts on The Stone Sky. We're going through a bit of a heat wave in the UK at the moment, so apologies if this update looks a little bit dark. There is no way I can put the top light on for this clip. I'm already sweating, and I've literally been talking for like 20 seconds, but I wanted to let you know I did start The Stone Sky last night, I think it was. It might have been the night before. I am currently 150 pages into this, so just past a third of the way through. I have mixed feelings at the moment. I'm still feeling invested in the story and in the characters, but I'm also confused. I can't work out whether there's stuff that I'm meant to know at this point or whether it's being deliberately vague. So there are characters that are doing stuff and I think I understand their motivations, but I don't know. I'm really confused. I can't work out whether I've missed stuff is what I'm trying to say. I don't think I have. I think all is gonna come together in the end, and yeah, it's still really intense, which is what I like. Even though things are building up quite slowly, I am still holding out hope that I'm gonna love where we end up, even though right now I'm finding the journey a little bit slow. I don't really know what else I can say at this point without spoilers. I am finding the characters really interesting, and I think this series as a whole has some really interesting relationships. So there's romantic relationships and family relationships and found family relationships. The further that I get into the series as well, the more I'm seeing why people describe this as sci-fi fantasy, because there's magic, so it's fantasy, it's set in a fantastical world, but there's a lot to do with society and the environment and stuff like that. So yeah, I am really enjoying this. I think I just need it to speed up a little. I'm still finding it compelling though. This update didn't make any sense, and I am fully aware that it didn't make any sense, but also I am hot. So I am gonna go and cool down and read some more of my book. So last night I did end up finishing The Stone Sky by NK Jemison, which means it's finally time to wrap up my thoughts on this series, and I would say that these two books are more like a 4 or a 4.5, whereas this was a solid 5 stars. I think the main issue that I had with these two books is that it felt more like the focus was on the journey rather than where we were actually going. And I mean, The Stone Sky in particular was so confusing. It did start to make sense the further that I got into it, but the main reason I didn't do many updates for this book is because I didn't really have much to say. It would have literally just been me sitting here saying, I'm confused, I don't know what's going on. I did really like the intensity of the ending though, and I think if you were to ask me in around a year's time for my thoughts on this series, I think what I'm gonna remember the most is how intense this was. I was not doing well towards the end of book 3 and book 1 and 2, to be fair. It was just a really intense reading experience, and I really enjoyed that. These do all follow multiple points of view, and I think that's possibly why I found The Stone Sky in particular the most confusing, because there was one point of view in this in particular that I really not struggled with, but it was like I kind of knew what was going on, but I didn't know the full picture, and it took a lot of brain power to get everything straight in my head. I think this is a series that I'm gonna want to reread at some point, because I'm wondering whether there was any foreshadowing in the first book that I didn't pick up on. I don't reread series that often, but I think this is a series where I would get quite a lot out of it if I were to reread it. Obviously this series won the Hugo Award 3 times in a row, so it's pretty popular. I think each book has over a 4.2 average rating on Goodreads. I might have made that up, but they all have pretty strong average ratings on Goodreads, so it is a popular series. However, I don't know who I would recommend this series to, because with with a lot of fantasy books, they fall into one of two categories. Either they're more plot driven or they're more character driven. And this isn't really either. It's more theme driven. Like, the biggest focus of this series is on the themes. So I think I've mentioned most of them already, but one of the main themes in this series is oppression. And there's also a big focus on motherhood, which was really interesting because I'm not a parent myself. So sometimes I find that I don't enjoy reading books where that is such a big focus, but I really liked how this explored motherhood. I found it really complex and intriguing. So yeah, I would recommend this series more if you are interested in something that's really unique, but also if you enjoy world building, because I think that was the main strength of this series. One of the main criticisms that I've seen for this series is that the characters are unlikable, and I do agree. However, I personally don't mind reading about unlikable characters, and I found the characters in this so interesting, and there was so much diversity with the characters and with the relationships that we were following. So there's LGBTQ+ rep, there's a trans woman who's a side character, and she's quite a prominent side character, which I really liked. I feel like I haven't read many fantasy books that have trans rep. There's also a polyamorous relationship, which again, I feel like I haven't read ever in a fantasy setting. I think the writing style as well either works for you or it doesn't, but I really liked NK Jemison's writing style. I'm really interested in reading more of her books, but I've heard that all of her series are quite different, so I'm not really sure what to go for next. But if you've read any of her other books, please let me know what you would recommend, because I've heard mixed things about her other series, but I'm really glad that I enjoyed this. I think this is my favourite series that I've read so far this year. I'm also really glad that I was able to read these quite close together, because I think if I'd left it too long between books, then I would have found this even more confusing. But yeah, that does bring me to the end of this reading vlog. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, let me know in the comments if you've read this series and what you thought of it. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and click subscribe if you would like to see more videos from me. But otherwise, I will see you next time. Bye.